Hi everyone, James here from Barbechoo.com and welcome back to another cook on the channel. Today we're talking about our Christmas ham. So last year we did an apricot glazed ham, which is a nice sticky sweet ham, and this year I thought we'd go something a bit more traditional, so it's a honey mustard glazed ham. Now, instead of using regular mustard to glaze the ham, we're actually going to use like a South Carolina style barbecue sauce. So it's a mustard based barbecue sauce, and then we're going to spice that up with a little bit of honey just to sweeten it a little bit more, and that's what we're going to use as the basis for our glaze. Now today we're cooking this beautiful ham from Hillstown Farm Shop. This is a 3 kilo ham, so definitely enough in there to do Christmas dinner, leftovers on Boxing Day, and probably sandwiches for the rest of the week. This is a fresh ham, it hasn't been cured, so the salt content in there isn't going to be high. So we're just going to leave it at that. We don't need to steep this or boil it first to remove any of that salt. We're just going to go straight onto the smoker with it and smoke it. So there is a little bit of prep work involved in the ham, depending where you get it from. This one came with the skin still on it, and we don't really want that on there for smoking. So I took it out of the net, kept the net in one piece, which I'll see later why. And then just use a sharp knife to remove that skin. Try and leave as much of the fat on there as possible, because that's going to render down throughout the cook and baste the ham. I then took that knife and scored it into that sort of traditional diamond pattern. Then we pull the net back over the ham again. You can tie it up with butcher's twine, but the net's a little bit easier to get on there and it holds it in shape better. The reason for this is there is a seam that runs through the middle of that ham, and as it cooks the ham can sort of collapse on itself and fall out of shape. Then we're going to leave that net on for the first portion of the cook. Before we glaze the ham, we're going to take the net off, but by that stage it should have stiffened up and it will hold its shape much better. So for the seasoning to go over the top, we have a bit of a mixture here. So we're using the Angus and Oink feather duster. It's a nice rub. There's sweetness in there, there's heat in there, and there's some nice citrus flavours too. But just to add a little bit of extra kick to it, we've actually mixed it with a little bit of smoked fennel pepper. So that's just fennel seeds and cracked black pepper, and that's been smoked. It's actually from Smoky Brae. So we've done that in a ratio of 2 tablespoons of rub to 1 tablespoon of fennel pepper. If you don't have the fennel pepper, you could cold smoke your own fennel seeds and pepper, or if you don't want to go to that extra step of cold smoking them, you can just add them in. So just toast off the fennel seeds a little bit and the fresh ground pepper, and just mix them 50-50. Then you want to add 1 tablespoon of that mixture to the 2 tablespoons of rub. So we'll go ahead, I've got them in this little shaker here, and we're going to go ahead and season this. Again, we're seasoning over the top of the net. It won't have an effect, the flavours will still get in there, the fat will still render down, and then we'll worry about presentation later whenever we come to glazing. So again, this is a big chunk of meat. Just get as much seasoning on there as you can. And you want to leave no man behind, so everything that's falling onto the chopping board, you can just move the ham around to gather all that up. So the rub's quite a nice fine texture. Those coarser bits of ground pepper and fennel seeds will give it a little bit of texture in the surface too. So that's it, ready to go onto the smoker. We'll move over now, I'll show you how I've got the Kamado Joe set up, and just explain if you're doing it on a different barbecue the way you would want to set up your cooker for it. So with the Kamado Joe set up, it's running at a temperature of between 140 and 150 C, that is. So we don't want this too high. We want to cook it for a slightly longer period of time just to make sure and melt down all those fats, but we don't want it so low that those fats aren't going to render down properly either. So 140 to 150 is sort of good temperature to put that at. As far as the grill setup, we have the coals all banked to one side. We're using the big block lumpwood charcoal, and then one of the deflector plates on the left hand side with the grate at the highest level above that. That's just going to guarantee we're not getting any direct heat from underneath with the coals banked off to one side. If you're doing this on something like a kettle, you would just use the same setup, all the coals banked to one side, with your meat set on the opposite side then, so that's using that indirect cooking method. Again, this will work on any barbecue. If you're doing it on a kettle, you might want to use briquettes, but say the Kamados run well on just lumpwood, they'll run for a nice long period of time. So we're pretty much ready to go on. If we open up, set the ham on that indirect side. Now we're going to use the Thermocue Wi-Fi to monitor the internal temperature of the ham, just to keep an eye on it as it's cooking, saves us having to open up the grill too much. So we'll go ahead and push the probe into the deepest part of the meat. And I'll just let us keep an eye on the internal temperatures as it's cooking. As far as smoke goes then, we are using, I have a couple of chunks here. I have one silver birch, and then these are two smaller chunks of pecan. So just place those directly into the coals to get them going. And that's it, we just want to close that down and let it cook. As we come closer to our final temperature of around 73 degrees, we're going to get the glaze onto it. But for a couple of hours, just want to let that go, take on smoke, and try and leave the lid closed as much as you can. So as you can maybe tell, a bit of time has passed. The ham has been smoking for just over maybe 3.5 hours. And we've reached an internal temperature of 65 degrees C. So at this point I want to start brushing that glaze onto it. As you can see, it's already got a good colour from the smoke. A lot of that fat has started to render down as well. So now I want to paint that glaze onto it just and give it a little bit of time to set up as it cooks for those last few degrees. So as I said before, we're using South Carolina style mustard barbecue sauce. So it's just a mustard base. There's apple cider vinegar in there to give it a little bit of tang. There is brown sugar in there too, just to sweeten it up a little. And that's all cooked down now, but I'll leave a link below to the recipe for this entire thing. All the ingredients for that sauce are in there. Really, it's just putting them all into a saucepan and cooking them down. So we're going to go in with equal parts of that sauce and just regular runny honey. That's going to add a bit more sweetness to it, but the tang of that barbecue sauce is really going to counteract that. So we'll go in first with that mustard sauce. And we'll add in the honey. The sweetness with ham has always been quite a popular one. There's some people who would just glaze with regular honey on its own. We just need to mix that to combine it all together and break down that honey through the mustard sauce. The measurements in the recipe for the sauce, there's actually more than you'll need for this. But as I said, it's just a barbecue sauce. Hold on to it, it's one of my favourites. It goes really well with like a sweet sticky barbecue sauce, and then this just adds that little bit of like tangy acidity from the cider vinegar. So that's that all combined. Let's head over to the barbecue now and we'll get that brushed onto the ham, and we'll get it to set up a little bit and start going sticky. Okay, at this point we're going to pop a drip tray in below the ham. Just try and catch as much of that glaze that's going to drip down off this as possible. And we also want to get rid of this net, so just find the edge of it. Just use a knife to start cutting it away. So that fat has rendered down really nicely. I've lost a bit of it here from taking the net off, but it's just like jelly, so it's time to start painting on that glaze. So just take a brush and start mopping it over. As it heats up, it will run down over, so just try and get it onto that top section for now. So we're going to come back to this and glaze it. So every 10 minutes or so, just to keep it, try and build up that shine on the surface. And once you've all painted, you can go ahead and close that down again. Just jiggle it around to fit the thermometer in. We'll just close that down and let it glaze. So we glazed that ham a few times, sort of every 10 or 15 minutes, until the internal temperature reached 73 degrees. And we've lifted it off and we've rested it for a while. And you can see that glaze is really tacked up to the outside of it. We have lost a few little bits of the fat cap here and there, but again, it's just that fat goes so soft, it can pull off quite easily, so try and be careful with it. But the smell coming off it is unreal. So I want to slice into it now just and have a little taste. I'll bring the camera in a little bit closer because you're not going to see much sitting over there. So just take a couple of slices off the front here. So I like to go relatively thin slices, they don't need to be too thin. Still lots of moisture in there, it feels so tender. Cooking at that slightly lower temperature rather than sort of high roasting temperature has really given it a chance to render out those fats in the middle. Sort of little seams that are in there. This makes for such a tender ham. See here, it's almost falling apart. It's nearly a little bit too tender. But if I lift it up, see just how juicy that is. But the important thing is, how does it taste? Take a bit here. So you can see how that lovely crust has built up. You can really feel the coarseness of the pepper and the fennel. Let's give it a taste. It's so tender. I'm going to enjoy eating this for days. Not a massive fan of really sweet hams, but the tang of that mustard barbecue sauce really does counterbalance the honey. So you get sweetness, but there is sort of underlying flavours of sort of bitterness, so that sort of vinegar taste to it coming from the apple cider vinegar and the mustard. All these little gnarly bits on the end. So if you're looking for ideas of what to do with your ham this year, I can highly recommend this. I would almost go as far as to say it's probably my favourite over the apricot glaze. Apricot glaze was nice, but this is just a different level of sort of glaze that you get over the top of it. Flavours are unreal. So if you want the recipe, click the link in the description and all the details will be in there on my website. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and I'll see you in the next video. I can't feel my fingers, it's so cold out here. Oh, let's get this inside and eat.